I'm Fred Barnes.
And I'm Mort Kondracke. We're the Beltway Boys.
The story, the hot story number one, Mort, fear factor. I'm talking about the fear of another serious terrorist attack by Islamic militants, and it is the issue. It's the hot new issue as we approach the November 7th midterm election. That's less than 90 days away, so it's already starting to heat up. And Mort, I'm afraid it has trumped all your favorite issues. You know, stem cell research, immigration, same-sex marriage, all those ones you like to talk about. And in what looks like, and I think you'll agree on this, and increasingly a Democratic year in the election, this is the one issue: terror, national security, terror, all wrapped into one. It is the one issue that makes Democrats tremble with fear.
Well, I agree with you that there is no more important issue at all than it's the issue of the 21st century. It's civilization against Islamic radicalism, and there's no question about it. The Islamic radicals are trying to work on developing nuclear weapons, weapons of mass destruction of all kinds. But I'm not sure that when the Democrats are saying that we need to harden the homeland, that they're necessarily fighting the last war. That could be the next war, and I think it needs to be done. Well, look, politically, this country ought to be as unified about fighting the war on terrorism as it was after 9/11, and that we were after Pearl Harbor. And if we were unified, we would have NSA spying, and we would all agree. And the Democrats, in addition to what some of the Democrats, Reid, for example, and others, Patrick Leahy, said, oh, well, let's tap these terrorists. Well, okay, let's get the legislation passed now to do it. That's part of what unity is all about.
By the way, I don't think congressional legislation is needed because that judge's decision striking down the NSA eavesdropping program is going to be overturned. I mean, it's a wild card. Every other 5 other courts of appeal have ruled exactly the opposite, that wiretaps were not needed.
Let's not wait for the Supreme Court to do with that program what it did with Guantanamo.
Okay, look. Here's the point about this polarization. We are stuck with it. There is nothing George Bush can do that are going to get Democrats on his side on this issue, and there's nothing they can do that's going to get George Bush. So, given that, let's have a debate. This is the most important issue in the world. I agree with you. Let's have a debate among Republicans and Democrats. They disagree. Let's have a vigorous debate.
And you know, my appeal to you for unity notwithstanding, I realize it's a vain hope. Mideast scorecard. Here's how we think the major parties fared in the Mideast conflict now that there's a ceasefire. A winner, Hezbollah.
I think all you need to know about Hezbollah is all of a sudden their not particularly charismatic leader, Nasrallah, is now an international rock star. So they won.
The loser is Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert. I think that the government's going to fall.
Yeah, no, I think there's a good chance it'll fall. It's a coalition government anyway. I'm not sure who will come in, but you know, from talking to people who've been in Israel during when did the war start, July 12th, who've been in there over the last month or so, all say the same thing. The Israelis almost unanimously think that this war, since it solved nothing, will lead to another war, that Israel and Hezbollah are going to clash sometime. And the next time, what they want, what the Israelis want, is the kind of military technology that will allow them to take out all those Hezbollah rockets. That's what they failed to do this time. And while the casualties weren't massive in Israel, you know, if they don't get that ability, the casualties will be more next time.
The winner here, or a winner, is Syria and Iran, Hezbollah's allies, and in case of Iran, the arms supplier and financier. Look, before this war began, what was topic A on the world agenda? Iran's nuclear program, which is a massive threat to all of humanity in the long run. It's now all but forgotten. The Arabs are scared to death of the Iranians, but when it's the U.S. and Israel against any Islamic force, the Arabs are all scared into the leadership is all scared into siding with Iran, which is their real enemy. So, and in Syria's case, you know, Syria got kicked out of Lebanon, but now through Hezbollah, it may end up running the place.
Yeah, that's hard to believe that could happen, but, you know, I wouldn't want to rule it out. I mean, look, through this whole thing, the puppet, Hezbollah, the puppet of Syria and Iran, the issue was who is going to disarm them. We thought it might be the Israelis. Well, no, that didn't quite happen. And then we have these 2 UN resolutions, 1559 and 1701, that says Hezbollah has to be disarmed. And so the question persisted through this whole war: who's who's going to disarm Hezbollah? Well, we know the answer now. Nobody.
Yeah, and the loser, the big loser, I think, is President Bush.
I think Bush is a big loser, but he certainly was let down by a lot of people. The Israelis, who didn't mount an all-out offensive. The Lebanese, who wound up backing Hezbollah, of all things. And remember how the moderate Arab states, and you alluded to this, initially were critical of Hezbollah, but then they fell in line. I mean, the Saudis, Jordan, and Egypt, they all fell in line and were bad.
Exactly.
Up Joe Lieberman. His fledgling independent bid is gaining momentum in Connecticut. The latest Quinnipiac poll shows Lieberman leading Democrat Ned Lamont 53 to 41, that's percent, among likely voters. GOP challenger Alan Schlesinger only got 4%. You know, for Lieberman, that's better than the poll that was taken right after the primary. I think he was ahead by 6 then, now 12.
Yeah, that poll shows that Lieberman is getting 75% of the Republican vote, 58% of the independent vote, and is retaining 35% of the Democratic vote.
And now, here's my question that I have for you, and that is, if Lieberman is reelected and he shows up back in Washington as an independent, and Democrats do not recognize his seniority and give him what I think he would be if Democrats capture the Senate, would be a chairmanship. Don't give him that. But Republicans want him on their side, and they say, we'll recognize all your seniority. Would he jump parties?
Well, it gets even more interesting. Consider if the Republicans lose a lot of seats and he becomes the deciding factor. There might be a bidding war for him. But I don't. Look, he's a Democrat. He's been a Democrat. Been a Democrat all his life. The Democrats are not going to be so stupid as to deny him his seniority.
Well,
so
you never know.
Okay. Down. Republican Senator George Allen of Virginia. His re-election campaign was forced to go into damage control mode. The reason? Allen's off-the-cuff remark calling a rival campaign aide a macaca, whatever a macaca is. You can explain that to me if you can.
I'd explain it to you, except I've asked people who've traveled all over the world, many people, if they'd ever even heard the expression macaca. Nobody has. He wants to run for president in 2008, and I think this points to a phenomenon that we've seen before. I mean, the press basically doesn't like Democratic candidates anyway, McCain being the exception, but we'll find one who is the target and whipping boy. In other words, the press is macaca. I'm afraid Allen may be heading for that in 2008. Unfairly, but it happens.
Yeah, but look, Allen also said in this all-white crowd, welcome to America, welcome to Virginia. This was clearly a demeaning remark toward a dark-skinned, in this case, Indian American, you know, and it does not speak well about where Allen is coming from mentally, I think.
Down. Pennsylvania gubernatorial candidate, Republican Lynn Swann, even a visit from President Bush probably won't be enough for the Pro Football Hall of Famer to beat incumbent Governor Ed Rendell. The most recent polls, which I mentioned for Mort's benefit, shows Rendell opening up a 19-point lead over Swann among likely voters. That's a big gap.
Well, you know, Republican National Chairman Ken Melvin has been trying to woo African Americans and was hoping that running high-profile candidates like Lynn Swann would help. Swann's way behind. Michael Steele is behind his in the Senate race in Maryland, and so is Ken Blackwell in the governorship of Ohio. The plan's not working this year.
On the other hand, in Pennsylvania, there's Rick Santorum, the senator running for re-election. Had been way down, but there's a new poll that shows Santorum.
You
really
like polls when they show something you like.
I'm falling in love with them. It shows Santorum is picking up ground against challenger Bob Casey. The gap is narrowed to 6 points. 6 in the latest poll. Back in June, the margin it was 18 points. You know, with Santorum way back, still every Republican I ever talked to in Pennsylvania said that he was going to win against Bob Casey. And you know who one of his allies is? Democratic Governor Ed Rendell, who said he'd never do anything that would hurt Santorum. This story was revealed actually by in the Weekly Standard that Rendell feels that way by Selena Zito of the Pittsburgh Tribune Review, writing in the Weekly Standard.